being here. Thank you in person. I know, again, I'm very grateful for the virtual option, and I know there's a lot of you out there that can't leave your desk or your post. But for those of you who can, moving forward, we're hoping that we can do more in-person leadership and management trainings here in this wonderful, wonderful facility. So first off, a round of applause for the library, for Mike Smith back here and our crew, the other Mike as well, for their help in this. To get started here, I actually came across this morning, this picture that I enjoyed. Any questions about your work? Ask your supervisor. Now, I don't know if it's a social expectation or an expectation that we put on ourselves, but as supervisors, at least I have felt that you've always got to have the right answer, right? You got to have an answer to everything. But in reality, what's going through my mind is this, okay? To the right. Basically, I tell myself, okay, don't say anything stupid. Like, I don't know what the answer is. The whole objective, not the whole objective, but the objective with leadership and management training is to accomplish two things, okay? One is we want to eliminate a lot of the guesswork for you as a supervisor, okay? The other thing that we want to do is to increase your resource pool socially, meaning we want to help you build relationships with other supervisors, okay, outside your circle, okay? We all work for the city of Orem. We all have experiences, and we can all learn from each other's experiences. So what I want you to do, I'm going to make it okay. BJ knows exactly what I'm going to do because he's giving me that smirk of a smile right now. I want you to go sit next to someone you don't know very well, especially someone outside of your department, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to introduce yourself, your department, your position, how long you've been with Orem City, especially Sam. Sam needs to come over here. And what you enjoy most about your job, okay? If you're already sitting next to someone you don't know, you can stay there, but I need you to stand up and move around and find someone you don't know and sit by them. So off we go. Either someone you don't know or someone you don't know very well. I know, they are, okay. Jeremy, you get to sit by someone that you don't know very well and someone outside your department. You get to. Okay, we'll give you one more minute to kind of wrap that up. Joe, why don't we have you come sit by Sam up here with this group? Okay, for those of you who are standing, you need to sit next to these people. So find a seat because we're going to have some group discussions. So stay next to that person, Brandon, because we're going to have some conversations, basically some in-house networking. So wait, we got to stay up here next to Sean because you're going to be visiting with him. You guys standing in the back, you got to find a seat. Call this in-house networking, okay? We're building our resource pool of supervisors. Before we get into my topic, I'm going to turn the time over to Carrie. She's got some stuff that she'd like to discuss with the group.
I like how you pull them out of their comfort zone and then turn it over to me. I just wanted to quickly talk about the hybrid PTO that we've been discussing a lot lately, and just answer any questions that you guys might have as far as supervisory goes, if we were to move in this direction. So, or any questions that you might have with the program. First of all, I wanted to let you know too, if we do move in that direction in July, we will have a honeymoon period. For the police department, it's a baby moon period because you guys have a lot of officers that are having babies this year in the fall. Right, Chad? Where's Chad? There he is, yeah, right? Yeah. So we're gonna have a baby moon or honeymoon period from July till the end of December. So if you have an FMLA qualifying event, you do not have to use your 80 hours of PTO between July and December. Starting in January, though, you do have to use the 80 hours of PTO. So there will be a honeymoon period there. Also, for the because the last 6 months, you won't be accruing any sick leave because we'll be moving to PTO. We will give you a half of an annual bank into your short-term medical leave. So it'll be 23.25 hours of short-term medical leave that will come in July if we move in this direction. Another thing is that we found out that a lot of people did not like the idea of having to use comp time before PTO. So that requirement has been removed because that was a big hurdle for some people. Happy to answer any questions. Mike.
The 50%, 80 hours that you could potentially bank or cash out or roll that you talked about, is that after tax, before tax? What does that number look like at that 50%?
That's a great question. So his question for you guys online is the 50% cash out, and I'll go to that slide. For the cash out, it's 50 cents on the dollar. This is just if you leave during, or sorry, not just if you want to cash out every year. When you leave working for the city, you're paid out at your normal hourly rate for your full amount. This is just if you want to do the annual cash out. The way that works is if you get cash on your paycheck, it will be taxed. If you put it into a retirement account or the HSA, it's pre-tax money. Thanks, Brandon. Trevor.
Has there been anyone that's presented a strong opposing argument against this?
Is there anyone in this room that would be willing to stand up against this? When we did ours, it seemed like I just wanted to hear the other side.
Okay, so Trevor's asking for people that have concerns with the program and why.
Part of it is I'm worried I'm missing.
He's worried he's missing something. Reed?
Public Works has some concerns. Public Works has just some concerns, basically about the how easy it is to access the sick leave if they need it. We did a little analysis to see how much sick leave is typically used by our employees, and about 70% use at least 45 hours, which is what we will be, which I don't know how to say this clearly.
I think I would say that they use usually 40 hours of sick time every year. One thing I want to mention to that, Reed, though, if you don't mind, is that a lot of us schedule our doctor's appointments, our dentist appointments, our annual visits during work hours, right? Because we have sick leave to pay for that. I think that some of this is going to, if we move this direction, will be a change in how you view your time off. And I would say I'm getting my teeth straightened and I will go to the orthodontist on my day off so that I don't have to burn any of my PTO time off to go to the orthodontist. Or if I've got to take my kids to the dentist, I'll see if they have after hours, or you know what I mean, something like that where I wouldn't have to use any of my PTO time for that.
And many of Public Works have liked the flexibility of being able to schedule it off and view, or to use sick leave to go to the doctor for themselves or for their family. There is use of sick leave in order to care for the family, and by policy they're allowed 40 hours. The sick leave that we receive, the 96 hours, they divide that in half, put half into a short-term medical leave bank. So the other half, about 45 hours, is now available as PTO. If they're already using the 45 plus hours for sick leave, they view it as that they're going to start losing time, because many are above that because they have young families, because they have been taking that time out for doctor's visits, for just simply being ill. I mean, the message has been sent that if you don't feel well, stay home. And so 45 hours is that point where you're currently using that as sick leave. It's now going to PTO. And if many of our employees are above the 45 hours, it's going to cost them vacation time because they're using more than the 45 hours that are now available. That's one of the concerns. Another is many of them don't have a healthy medical leave or sick leave. They've opted to purchase the short-term medical leave insurance. So that particular portion, they kind of feel forced to get something that they're already taking care of in the form of the insurance. I recognize the value of the short-term medical leave bank. I've fortunately been healthy and have a healthy balance, and I'm uncovered it. It's taken me an entire career to have a healthy balance. The young guys, it's going to be more challenging. It's been a very good exercise for us to have Carrie come and present these ideas and have them listen to it. They've gone back and really looked at it based upon what they currently do. And then there's been a great interaction between us as supervisors to try to understand what their concerns are and to say we're going to communicate these to others. So it's a great program, but from the view of Public Works, they think that the current program, most of Public Works thinks that the current program is better.
Thanks, Reed. Oh, here's my message to you. And Jackie, you haven't had a chance to hear this yet. We haven't met with your department at all, or dispatch, and those are the two groups. So we'll connect with your department this week or probably next week, and then we're meeting with dispatch next week as well. So Trevor, I think that our current program is awesome. I do. I think it's great that we have a vacation bank and a sick bank, and we have the ability to purchase short-term medical leave. And the fact that the city already pays for us to have long-term disability insurance is awesome. I think our current program is great. So I don't want anyone to think that I don't. I think that the program we currently have is awesome. I think this other program that has been proposed also has great qualities as well. I think that if you want to have more control with how you determine when and how you're going to take your time off, this program is better for you, right? Because if you have the ability to adjust your schedule so that you don't have to go to these appointments and things during the work hours, and that you can do it on your days off or in the evenings or early mornings or however you can do that, then you can have that as a cash value to you now moving forward. And I think when I was presenting in the police department, one thing that they really enjoyed was the idea of having the cash out at the end of the year. They thought that was really awesome to be able to give themselves a Christmas bonus at the end of the year, or to put extra money into their retirement accounts. So it's really on what you value the most. Being able to have that flexibility to use that sick leave however you need to, or to have that time off in other ways. That answer your question, Trevor?
Test.
You've been tested.
Okay, it's working. So on average in a company, City of Orem, do we have a number as far as employees that abuse sick time? Because as a supervisor, I'm thinking, man, this program is going to be awesome because it's going to get rid of those people or not have the typical call out or the sick time and then put staffing short. And so I'm thinking as a supervisor, this is awesome because it's going to alleviate that burden as a supervisor that, hey, you've got that person, because we all know who that person is, and everybody in this room has a name on their head who abuses sick time, right? And so I'm thinking as a supervisor, this is an awesome thing. So do we have a number as far as during your research that you've kind of come up with as far as the standard, as far as people that abuse sick time? Is there something like that out there?
So Mike, that's a great question. And as supervisors, I think that's one of the ideas that this program fixes, is that thought. It's very difficult because I can see how many hours every employee uses throughout their career, and the average amount of time. And you might have, and I wish Lane Gray was in here, he has like 2,300 hours of sick leave. And then we have another employee here who's been here the same amount of time that has 200 hours of sick leave. So when you do the math there, that other employee has, and they might have some legitimate sick concerns or FMLA events and things between the two employees. But during the career, that other employee has taken almost, well, more than a year off more in time than Lane Gray has. That's kind of interesting if you think about it. That's a lot of time off between the two. And I'm not saying that it wasn't legitimate time off or anything like that, but I do see that this program is one of the benefits, is that it equalizes that for everybody. So they have the same amount of time off. You don't want to speak in that. So Justin brought up a good point. He says, well, it depends upon what your individual circumstances are. He has a child with special needs, right? So you use a lot of sick time to care for your child, right? And I get that. I totally understand that. And one thing that I do like about the new program, though, is right now you're limited to only using 40 hours for that child, right? Where on this, if you needed to use more than 40, you could use PTO moving forward. So it's a balancing act there. And those in the fire department that work shift work, this is the traditional PTO hours, so yours will look a little bit different for your accruals. Ryan?
I was just going to say, we as supervisors have that flexibility with our employees if they're taking doctor's appointments, if they want to work an extra hour or come in an hour early so they don't have to take PTO. I think that's something we should look at working out with our employees so they feel better about that and don't have to lose that benefit.
Thanks, Ryan. I totally agree with that. And there's going to be some areas that we don't have the flexibility. I'm thinking fire department, you work the 24-hour shift, so it's less flexible. But I will also say with your shift workers, they've got 96 hours to be able to schedule that time off moving forward too. So that might be more beneficial. And Reed, I don't know if your department, if you guys could have that flexibility, if they needed to take that time off. In some areas, I would say it would be a possibility.
Where they work as crews, it's going to be challenging. Want them there at the same.
But it's possible to have some flexibility. Yeah.
So just selfishly, I don't use as much of my sick time as I do vacation. I end up blowing out my vacation. And again, selfishly, this program gives me more of an opportunity to spend more time camping unless I'm in the office. Just as a counterpoint, we've been talking point and counterpoint.
Thanks, Steve. Questions, comments? Reed?
What's the purpose of needing to use 80 hours of PTO before being able to access the sick leave, the short-term medical leave? Why do you have to use 80 hours first?
That's a great question. If we didn't, then we might as well just stay with our current program, right? Because if we gave everybody it all cash value, all the hours cash value to you moving forward, and you could access the short-term medical leave, this program would be really expensive and we would never be able to afford it. And we just have, because we don't have, Brandon, I'm glad you're in here, Trevor, I'm glad you're in here. The way that our budget works, our line items, all of the vacation hours that we have has a value on the budget, correct? On our, what do you call it, Brandon? On our books, right? On our financial statement. Thank you, Trevor. That's why they're here. They're much smarter than I am. So on our financial statement, we have everybody's vacation time. All those hours at their current rate is on the financial statement. Sick leave has how much on our budget? Zero, because there's zero liability to the city. So if we put more on the cash value side, we're increasing the amount that we have to keep on our financial statement. I'm sounding really smart now, Trevor, thank you. On our financial statement, because we're taking more from the sick leave side over to the PTO side that has a cash value if we move to this. So we have to have some skin in the game. Oh, Jackie, I'm going to explain this all to you. Don't you worry. Okay, no more questions. Happy to stay after and discuss these. It's a good conversation to have as supervisors separately. I do know that if we do move in this direction, it is a big change to what our current work culture is. Paul has a question.
Actually, more of a comment. Jim called Sandy City counterpart and talked with Jim McClinic up there, and he says that they have a similar program like this. He said that most of the people that he talks at Sandy City say that they would not go back to the system that we have. It may be an opportunity for each of us in our position to call Sandy City and ask their employees how they like it in their respective positions.
I've got a friend in Sandy Police Department, they love it.
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. So yes, so They have 1.0 of this. We have 2.0. I feel like this is even better program than whoever was super awesome there at the time that created their program. And I'm glad to see that it's successful. One of the things that I really regretted is that I came here 15 days after they implemented it in Sandy City. So I never had an opportunity to see how good it's been, but I have reached out to several there too. And I actually talked to the HR director last week and she said it's one of their very favorite benefits. But I mean, it was a big cultural change for them as well. They had the exact same questions that we are having here in this room and amongst our employee groups as well. It is a big change.
They have the exact same program that we have. What did they go from?
They had the exact same thing, traditional vacation and sick.
15 days at 5 years, 18 days at
They,
how much sick leave? Did they
it was almost identical. In fact, everyone who has traditional vacation and sick leave in cities, they're almost all identical, almost all identical. What's better here for us is that their cap out for the short-term medical leave is 480 hours and our cap out is 680. And talking to their HR department, they haven't had any issues with people getting below that and not being able to use their short-term medical leave time.
So what happens under the circumstances that there's someone is ill, but I do not have 80 hours of PTO stored up? How do you bridge the gap between that and short-term?
Thanks, Steve. So there's two scenarios that I see in this situation. One, if you're a brand new employee and you have not had the opportunity to accrue those 80 hours to get into short-term medical leave, that's going to be a very different conversation than someone that's been here 25 years and has just chosen not to keep the 80 hours in their pocket. So I think the first, if you have a brand new employee that hasn't had the opportunity to accrue enough time, the department director and myself will discuss and choose whether or not we'll allow the employee to go negative in their PTO for those 80 hours. On the other hand, if we have an employee who has just gone on vacation, and then have a traumatic event or something, and just hadn't kept those 80 hours in their back pocket, that might be a different conversation, but that is up to the department director. I would also say that we can have employees go unpaid for those 80 hours to get them to the short-term medical leave, but that is also very expensive because the employee would have to pay for their benefits as well as the city's side of the benefits. So all their premiums would have to be paid by the employee, which is quite a bit of money.
Now, on the current plan, we can certainly give our vacation to another, right?
That's a great question. His question is, can we donate vacation hours to someone's sick leave like we do now? So in the new program, if we move that direction, you would be able to donate PTO to someone's short-term medical leave bank. So the same, but it has to go into their short-term medical leave bank. Correct. 1-to-1 ratio. Trevor.
If you had two FMLA events, would you be expected to come up with 160 hours?
That's a great question. The question is, if you have two FMLA events in 1 year, do you have to use 80 hours both time? The answer to that is no. So the first time is 80 hours. The second event would be 40. And that's on the rolling calendar. So if you have knee surgery, just as an example, in August, and then had a baby in January, even though they're in two different calendar years, they're in one FMLA rolling calendar. So you'd only have to use 40 hours in that rolling calendar. So the first event triggers the calendar, the rolling calendar.
But you still only have those 12 weeks in a rolling calendar anyway.
Correct. You still only have the 12 weeks, the 480 hours in that rolling calendar for FMLA. So if you were to use 6 weeks for your knee surgery, you'd only have 6 weeks left in January for the baby event.
FMLA would be a good training for us.
I think so too. I think doing this these trainings and then talking about long-term disability and the 12 weeks and that you can't actually use 2,000 hours of sick leave all in a row. You can't take an entire year off of sick leave, but it's just not the way that the system works. I think it's been a good learning experience for all of us as we're going through this. Michael, is there any questions online? No questions. Online peeps, do you have any questions for me? Type it in the chat. Okay, if your work group, sorry, Shirley, I'll get to you in 1 second.
You said 40, and that's definitely 80 for the PTO, right? That's it, before you can start using it.
You have to use 80 hours of PTO before you can use the short-term medical leave bank.
But it's 40 on an FMLA.
No, it's 80.
80 on an FMLA.
The second event. So if you had 2 events in that rolling calendar, it'd be 40 the second time. If your work group has not had this presentation yet, please stay after or send me an email or chat so that I can get you on the schedule. I know that I haven't met with the legal department and with dispatch, but as far as I'm concerned, after that, everybody in the city has heard the presentation. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Jason. Thanks.
Okay. What I'm going to do today is, it may be a review. Clicker's not working. There we go. It may be a review for some of you, but we've had quite a bit of turnover with our supervisors or promotions over the last several months. And I keep getting a lot of questions and concerns and some challenges that we keep running into. So I'm going to talk about basically what I do. I don't know, there we go. Okay, so how do we, as supervisors for the city of Orem, how do we protect the city from loss? What is our risk exposure? Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is property coverage, workers' compensation coverage, liability coverage, and legal agreements. When I think about coverage or when I think about insurance, my mind automatically goes to either one of these 2 scenarios, okay? Whether you've got an umbrella that protects you from the greater majority of the water coming out of the sky, or this thing. What is, if anyone's changed oil before, what is that? It's a filter, an air filter, right? And the whole purpose of a filter is to keep out the bigger particles, right? Insurance functions the same way. It's that umbrella, it's that filter that helps protect the city. So getting into this, property coverage. Now, our broker is a company known as Morton and Company, okay? They're not actually the insurance carrier. They go out and find carriers to suit our needs. But what we insure is our physical properties. Can anyone besides Brandon or anyone else in accounting take a guess at the insured value of all of the properties that Orem City owns? $230 million worth of physical building properties, okay? We also insure our equipment and vehicles. Anything that exceeds $50,000, we insure, again, through Morton and Company, through that process. Everything, so that value is at around 15 million, okay? Now that's only 2/3 of our actual fleet. All of our police vehicles, pool cars, those types of things, anything that is less than that 50,000, we're on the hook for 100%, okay? We self-insure those things. The other thing that I use Morton and Company for is any special events, okay? AKA Summerfest. Sometimes police does a big party each year, those types of things that I will insure and get coverage for. Oops. So what is, well, yeah, it's not a party. It's a national night out where we invite the public to come and to participate and to build relationships with our police force. It's a great event. So what is your role as a supervisor as it relates to these three things, okay? Your role as a supervisor is I need to know about these things. If you're gonna throw an event within your department, if you're in the process of building a structure within your realm of responsibility, I can't ensure it if I don't know about it, okay? I can't provide event coverage for an event like National Night Out or some other, if the fitness center throws a patron party there at the fitness center, I can't ensure it if I don't know about it. So your responsibility is to make sure that those things are communicated so that I know what's going on. Obviously, if we purchase a new fire truck or a new vac truck or those types of things, I work with Thane in Fleet, and he keeps me up to speed on those types of things, but make sure that I'm brought into that process. The next one is workers' compensation coverage. Now, for the last few years, we've been fully insured with WCF, Workers' Compensation Fund, I believe for the last 3 full years. So, by show of hands, how many of you know what an EMOD is? Or how it relates to, okay, Brandon, there's a few of you. Okay, how this works with workers' compensation, being fully insured through them, we have to, just like any insurance, you pay a premium, right? And then your insurance company kind of steps in and takes over. So Workers' Compensation Fund, WCF, basically functions as a TPA, like a third-party administrator, okay? They come in, we pay the premium, and then we turn the injury claims over to them, they manage it. However, this EMOD is an experience modification rating. Now, what that is, part of the equation to get to how much that premium is gonna cost is based off of what our EMOD score is. Okay, now what this score does is it's kind of like your credit score. If you're going to the bank to get a loan, they want to know what is their risk exposure, okay? So in the world of injuries, EMOD functions in a similar way, in that it tells the insurance carriers not how many injuries we've had, but our ability to manage those injuries, or to reduce those injuries or prevent those injuries. A city our size, with the amount of employees that we have, we should have a score or an expectation that of a 1, okay? The lower the score, the better, okay? Right now, we are sitting at 1.09, so we're 9%, for lack of a better term, worse than other cities in our ability to eliminate or not have those injuries, okay? So the whole idea is for that number to come down. Now, how that number is calculated, oh, we lost it. There we go. Comes down to 2 things: medical only claims and lost time claims, okay? So a medical only claim is something where you have an employee who's injured, they go to the doctor puts a Band-Aid on it, pats him on the head, gives him a lollipop, and sends him back to work, okay? Medical only. A lost time claim is when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, I don't want you to work for the next few days or several days, okay? In which workers' compensation wages would then get involved, okay? But as far as the EMOD is concerned, the ratio here, it takes about 10 medical only claims are equal to 1 lost time claim. So those lost time claims are bad, okay? When we have an employee who gets injured so severely that they can't come to work and WCF actually has to pay them wages, that makes our EMOD go up, okay? And even that 10% or that 9% that I was talking about can equate to upwards of $50,000, $60,000 more on our annual premium. So the whole idea is to get that number lower. I know some neighboring cities that are as big as we are that have a point, in the 0.7 range, 0.8 range, that do much better than we do with preventing our injuries. So again, I get a lot of questions from employees. Well, I got hurt, so do I get a check from workers' comp now? The only time workers' comp wages are applicable is if the doctor says, okay, Justin, I don't want you to go back to work for more than 4 days. Okay? Because by state law, it requires a 3-day waiting period, which means you have to use 3 full days of your own sick time. And then on that 4th day, workers' comp wages kick in, 4th, 5th, 6th, and so on, however many days the doctor says you can't be at work. Any questions on that, Carrie?
I just wanted to mention, as I was talking about the hybrid PTO, if you're injured on the job, you do not have to use PTO hours to use that short-term medical leave bank. If it's on the job injury, you can access the short-term medical leave bank day one.
Yes. So employees or supervisors have asked, okay, how do I handle time cards? Well, for the most part, if an employee is injured, say they show up to work at 7 o'clock, they're injured at noon, halfway through the day, whatever, we send them to go get medically treated. That whole day is considered a day of work, regular hours, okay? So they just put in, if they work a normal 8-hour shift, they put 8 hours on that day, and then we go from there. If someone, for example, we've had problems in the past where the doctor said, okay, you can't come to work for 5 days, and the supervisor then manually grabs sick hours and inputs the employee's time card. So now they're going to get a check from WCF and a full paycheck from Orem City. So here's the rule, okay? If they're out for a work-related injury, you just leave your time card blank, okay? You submit whatever, say they work the first week, you submit the regular hours that they showed up, but then that second week, you just submit blank, and then Amy and I in HR take care of the rest. Make sense? Yeah, we'll take care of that as well. Yep, we'll take care of that. WorkMed or the hospital, where do I send my employees? Okay, here's the thing. WorkMed is open until 5:30. Okay, Monday through Friday. If an incident happens anytime within that time frame, you send them to WorkMed. Okay, over up on 800 North. WorkMed can pretty much do the majority of what an ER can do with the types of injuries that we have. Obviously, if it's a life-threatening situation, you go to the ER, okay? But where we get into trouble as supervisors is that we try to play doctor, okay? What is required of the employee is that they report the incident, they report an injury to you, okay? But they do not have to receive medical treatment unless they feel that they need medical treatment, okay? So as a supervisor, do not tell the employee, well, you have to go to the doctor, okay? Because what happens is WCF, now that we're fully insured, we pay a premium, they manage the claim. So they make the decisions, okay? And if the employee gets to the doctor and they're like, well, I don't even think I need to be here, but my manager said I need to go, but then come to find out that the injury was like a pre-existing condition or something, okay? Because the supervisor sent them to get medical treatment, then workers' comp will step in and pay that, okay? So again, we need to leave it up to the employees to make that decision of whether or not they need medical treatment. Now, again, we can get into the claim reporting process, but there's 2 types. There's the minor injury claim, which again is, I was injured, but I did not receive medical treatment, or I chose not to receive medical treatment. Medically treated claim, obviously, if you saw a doctor, even if it's just 2 stitches on your little pinky finger, it needs to be reported as a medically treated claim. As far as the hospital goes, though, usually it's going to be Timpanogos Hospital. Given in police and fire, we do have some scenarios where they're transporting a suspect, where a blood exposure, whatever, and we've been told to follow that suspect. So if they go to Provo, that's where the employee goes to be treated as well. Light and restricted duty. So once an employee is injured and they go to WorkMed will print out a medical evaluation form, okay, that will have either regular duty, which means there are no restrictions, or restricted duty, okay? And then it will list what those restrictions are. As a supervisor, your role is to make sure that we are in compliance with those restrictions for that employee, okay? Each week, your employee will have a follow-up visit with the doctor, and then each week, those restrictions may be adjusted accordingly. So if it says, okay, only seated work, well, then we have to find seated work for this employee. Because again, if you're injured and the doctor says immediately you can go back to work, you're not going to get workers' compensation wages, okay? Again, that has to be more than 4 days before workers' comp wages kick in. Any questions on that? Again, this is just a snapshot of some of the issues that I've been running into with supervisors. Any questions? Char?
In terms of having the employee make a decision,
Uh-huh.
I mean, we have been concerned about issues lying in wait. You know, someone takes a hard fall, maybe they're a little bit older. We just didn't want something that seemed like just a fall to be something else. How do you approach that with, no, I'm fine, I don't need to go anywhere, with us kind of worrying about someone as supervisors?
We do, as supervisors, even in the handbook, we reserve the right, if there's question about their ability to do their job, then we can send them to the doctor to be evaluated. I'm the same way. I have to be dang near dead or dying to go to get any medical treatment for myself. But for example, if an employee gets injured and they take a couple days off, whatever, come back and they can barely move, they can barely function, they can't perform, they can't do their job, it hurts to get in and out of the patrol car, whatever it is, and they haven't received medical treatment at that point, obviously, if they can't do their job, then we send them to WorkMed. Again, depending if it's a work-related or something happened at home, two totally different things. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay. Again, but your role as a supervisor obviously is the prevention of, that should be your first and foremost priority, is the prevention of preventable injuries, okay? There are some things that are going to happen. If a police officer has to take a combative suspect to the ground to restrain them and is hurt in the process, I don't necessarily see that as preventable, okay? But if you've got employees that are doing things contrary to policy, contrary to the SOPs or whatever, and they get hurt, those are potentially the preventable ones. Those are the ones we're trying to avoid. So liability coverage, let's talk about this. Let's dig into this word liability and what it means, because we hear this word all the time, but what does it look like for departments? So let's take development services here. But I'll take Jason over here. Jason, what would something within your department that you would consider a liability to the city within your bubble of what you do? Driving a pool car, okay? What else? Let's say accounting. What would you consider liability? Can't use the same one. Hand stuck in the shredder. Yes, don't do that. Let's think bigger. Outside of an injury or accident. Let's go police. What do you consider liability in your department? Where are you liable or potentially liable? Everywhere, showing up for work, okay? Did we have a wrongful arrest? Okay, did someone get shot that didn't need to be shot? You know, or did we get shot? Okay. We start a wildfire, whatever it may be, okay? Let's the library, Shar, what does liability represent to the library? Why are you liable? Okay. Hypothetically, good hypothetically, okay? Okay, fire department, what does liability look like for you guys? Oh, no liability in the fire department. So liability is basically an event or in which there is negligence on our part or assumed negligence on our part. So liability is much, much more than an auto accident or an injury, okay? It could be anything from a development project or a zoning issue. We've got a lot of lawsuits over those types of things. It could be a a resident that trips and fall on a sidewalk, so public works, or the flooding of someone's home. Even though we weren't or we aren't negligent in that particular event, it's still assumed that Orem City is responsible, okay? And then we have to get into the claim process. So, by show of hands, how many of you think Orem City, as far as liability insurance goes, are we insured? Who thinks we're insured? Self-insured. Okay, there we go. So what's the difference? We are self-insured, okay, when it comes to liability. We are fully insured with injury insurance, workers' comp coverage, but we are self-insured with liability. Now, what that means is we work with this company known as IRMA, the Utah Risk Management Agency. They are, again, like a TPA, a third-party administrator. They help us manage our claims. Because we are self-insured, that means we have to pay for all of our losses, which leads me to the next one, okay? Next few. So who pays for our losses, Orem or IRMA? Okay, since we're self-insured, but we work with IRMA, it's actually both. How that works is IRMA upfronts the cost of a claim as it develops, and then I get a bill every 3 months, a quarterly invoice, where I have to pay, we have to pay those losses back. Now, those losses are called recap losses. So for example, if we have a lawsuit that costs the city $500,000, I don't know in your accounts, but I don't have $500,000 just readily available to write a check, okay? So IRMA upfronts that payment, and then Orem enters into a 7-year interest-free repayment program. So every year, it's called recap losses. Every year I have to send a check to IRMA for the last 7 years worth of liability claims, okay? Who is Libby Lowder? Now, Libby would kill me if she knew I used her picture up here. Libby is amazing. She is contracted with IRMA to be basically a claims adjuster, okay? She goes out, especially when people are injured. If a home gets flooded, she's going to be the person that's out there with the public, working with them one-on-one. She is an advocate for us, for the city. I've had a lot of employees or supervisors will be like, hey, this lady Libby called me and wants all this information. I don't feel comfortable giving it to her. You can give her anything she wants because she is fighting for us. She will actually work with our legal group to mitigate and reduce the overall exposure or loss of these claims. So very good person, very good to work with. So when that name comes up, and I know looking at some of you have already worked with Libby quite frequently. So again, what is your role as a supervisor? Again, we're trying to reduce these things. Again, we need to look outside the box. Liability, again, is much more than an auto accident or an injury. Even how we treat people as they come in is a liability. We can be sued for anything, absolutely anything, okay? Everything that we do, the moment we walk into this building, the moment we step out, is a liability to the city or a potential loss to the city. Because again, it doesn't mean that we were or are negligent. It just means it was assumed that we were, and we're getting sued because of that. Now, in your little groups here, what I want you to do, as far as those people sitting around you, if you're not sitting next to someone, make sure that you are. I want you to identify and discuss 3 or 4, again, thinking outside that box, liability risks within your realm of responsibility. And then I want you to explain what you've done as a supervisor to help mitigate that risk. Okay, so we'll give you about 5 minutes to do that. So go ahead.
For those of you online, just think of that in your own respective group. Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay, one more minute. If you could wrap up your conversations there. Okay. Part of the objective with this exercise, again, I'm trying to broaden your perspective of what liability is. And hopefully you've come to the understanding that there is liability in every single department, every division, every section, every group that works for the city of Orem is marinated in liability in some form or another, okay? It's not just specific to one group, some obviously more than others, but we all have liability, we all deal with it. And it's not just my responsibility to manage liability. It's not just a director's responsibility or Jamie's responsibility or Bren's responsibility to manage liability, okay? We all, as supervisors, have the responsibility to manage our risks, okay? To make sure that we're doing the proper trainings with our frontline employees, that we're communicating well, that we're doing our best to mitigate at the greatest degree possible those risks before something happens, okay? So the question has come up, well, if we have insurance coverage, why do we mess with, or why do we have to hassle with these agreements, okay? Why do we do this? Well, again, remember, we are self-insured with liability, okay? Meaning all of that, whatever losses comes from our budgets, okay, here at Orem City, which means if we have to set aside money to pay those losses, then that's money that could have otherwise been used for additional resources or, engines or whatever we need for the fire department or equipment for the police department or training materials or new software programs, whatever, in whatever way it's coming out of Orem City's pocket. So again, back to my umbrella little image there as far as protection or coverage, okay? Doing an agreement is going out in a storm with an umbrella, but you put a rain suit on before you go out, okay? Because there's still going to be stuff that gets through, okay? So in an agreement, what those agreements basically are in a snapshot, if I'm entering into agreement with Justin, he's doing work for the city, whatever it may be, as an outside entity, basically that agreement is designed to determine who's responsible for what, if what happens, okay? If things go south, who's going to pay for what, who's responsible for what, okay? Now with that, we are in each one of those agreements, 90% of them, okay? We require insurance of that outside party. So for example, we've got the Carnival group coming in for Summerfest. We require of that group to be insured, okay? They have to, again, that's another umbrella for us. Or we're thickening that filter in case something bad happens. So that if their negligence or they have a claim, okay, their insurance will absorb a portion of that claim, and then the residual or whatever then filters down through to our self-insured pockets. Does that make sense? So certificate of insurance is COI, okay? Now, your responsibility as a supervisor, obviously, you're the ones out there that are arranging these projects or these relationships, things that need to be done, whether that's a physical, with facilities, you're having a company come in to replace the carpet or clean the carpet, or if it's a consultant of some type, doesn't necessarily have to be something physical or construction related. But if you're the one that is leading that effort, make sure that you talk with the legal department and or myself and review what our risk exposures are so that we can assess of whether or not we need more protection, okay? To protect us from liability issues. Again, we need to take that proactive approach with risk management in these legal agreements. Any questions on the liability or legal agreements as of this point? Again, this is just a snapshot. Okay. This is from a book that I enjoyed, Leadership and Self-Deception. This isn't about perfection, far from it. It's simply about getting better in systematic and concrete ways that improve the company's bottom line. That kind of leadership mentality at every level of the organization is what sets us apart. Now, again, going back to my very first slide, as a supervisor, you feel like you have to have all the answers. You feel like, you know, you can't make a mistake or whatever. Again, whether that's social pressures or whether we put that on our own shoulders, I think it's more of that. The whole idea, the whole concept is to get better at what we do, okay? Yes, we are going to have liability claims. Yes, we're going to have injuries, okay? But the whole idea is continual and constant improvement in little incremental ways. To help do that, any other questions as it relates to risk management, liability, injuries? Okay. I want to help, again, reaching out and learning from each other, increasing your resource pool from other supervisors. I want you to look down through this list. I'm not going to read them, but these are common challenges as a supervisor, okay, that you are going to deal with, some multiple at the same time, but I guarantee you, if you're a supervisor for more than 3 months, you're going to deal with every one of these. Okay. And I want you to think about whatever one stands out to you, whatever one that's perhaps that you've dealt with recently. Okay. And hold on to that in your mind. I'm actually going to, Bren wanted to take a minute. He wants to share some of his insight with one of these. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a little group discussion afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Bren.
In my experience, whenever I'm asking people to share, to discuss, I want to be able to initiate, trigger the discussion, trigger ideas, stimulate the discussion. I mean, by first sharing my own experiences. So recently I was facilitating a discussion about management styles with the city managers around the state. And so I'm kind of sharing highlights from that with you. And then the idea is to use this once we break out into groups to get the conversation going on a different specific subject. So here we go. First, we want to define what it is we're talking about and set a kind of a framework for our discussions. So the topic that I picked from, common problems that we face as supervisors is micromanagement versus kind of a no oversight or laissez-faire kind of management style. So in order to help define it, we need Michael Scott, we need Dwight Schrute, and we need Jim Halpert to help us out.
Here's what's going to happen. I am going to have to fix you, manage you on a more personal scale, a more micro form of management. Jim, what is that called?
Micromanagement.
Boom. Yes. Now, Jim is going to be the client. Dwight, you're going to have to sell to him without being aggressive, hostile, or difficult. Let's go.
All right, fine. Ring, ring. Hello? Hello, this is Dwight Schrute from the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. Wow, that's great because I need paper. Excellent, then you are in luck because we are having a limited time offer only on everything.
Wow, this is my lucky day.
What is your name, sir?
I am Bill Buttlicker.
Really, that's your real name? dare you? My family built this country, by the way.
Be respectful, Dwight, please.
Yes, Michael. Could you hold on 1 second? That's my other line. What? No, but hello? Yeah. No, I'm just on the phone with this stupid salesman. He's so dumb. Probably just gonna keep him on the line forever and not buy anything. Okay.
It's up to you to change his mind.
Sorry, that was a family emergency. Oh, no, what's wrong? You know what? That's private.
Boundaries, Dwight, come on.
I'm sorry, Mr. Butler. As I was saying, we're having a limited. A little bit louder. I'm hard of hearing.
Sorry if he's an old man.
Okay, as I was saying, right now we are having. Louder. Okay, our prices have never been lower. Son, you have to talk louder. Never been lower. Louder, son. Butler, our prices have never been lower.
Stop it. That is totally inappropriate. You never yell at the client.
Now
Never
you
yell.
listen to me, sir.
Here we go.
The 3 words I would describe you as is aggressive,
Yes.
hostile, and definitely difficult.
Please, Mr. Butler.
I'm irate right now.
Give me the phone.
Please give me
He's
another
irate.
chance.
Give me the phone.
Mr. Butler.
Give me the phone.
I have to put you on with my boss. Well, I should hope so. Who is this?
Hello, this is Michael Scott, Regional Manager.
Well, this is William M. Buttlicker.
Hello, Mr. Buttlicker. How may we help you?
Michael, I like the sound of your voice. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy $1 million worth of paper products today. See, that's not.
Thank you very much, sir. I don't think you'll regret it.
You're the master. There is one condition, Michael. Yes. You have to fire the salesman that treated me so terribly. Don't do it, Michael.
It's $1 million sale.
Some of you were laughing a little bit too loudly. Okay, so micromanager, obviously, when a manager gets too involved to the point where they're practically doing it for them, very top-down management style. So we need the help of Ron Swanson to kind of show us the other side of the spectrum here.
The Human Resources Department requires that I be available once a month to discuss workplace disputes with my employees. The rules do not specify whether or not I'm allowed to listen to Willie Nelson on my headphones.
And Kyle parked his car in my spot again. Now, that is the 4th time this month.
Hello,
Sorry,
How things go for you.
The less I know about other people's affairs, the happier I am. I'm not interested in caring about people. I once worked with a guy for 3 years and never learned his name. Best friend I ever had. We still never talk sometimes.
See how it works?
What about my office and its many walls?
That becomes a new public meeting room. You're going to be more accessible than ever.
Excuse me. There's a sign at Ramsett Park that says, "Do not drink the sprinkler water." So I made some tea with it and now I have an infection. Sir? Sir, are you listening to me, sir? Sir, I'm talking to you. Sir, are you aware that there is waste in your water system?
If any of you need anything at all, too bad. Deal with your problems yourselves like adults.
Ron's so great, isn't he? So the other side of the spectrum is obviously very disconnected. Let your employees do whatever they want, complete autonomy and independence, and also, you know, kind of not caring, right? You know, these are funny because they're dramatic, but point is we're trying to frame the discussion, right? And so I'm showing 2 opposite sides of the spectrum here. But the key is that there's a spectrum, right? And there's plenty of management styles in between. And so as you're discussing, remember first we start and kind of define what it is we're trying to discuss. And then next is we try to ask questions about how does this apply to you in your work groups, or what experiences have you had that relate? Some of the things that I heard about from city managers was, you know, there's some situations where, you know, maybe getting more involved and defining specific processes where it makes sense, maybe not micromanage, but to be more involved, right? So maybe, for example, in parks or streets, Reed, you know, there's not a lot of
there's not a big range in how we need to mow a park or lay asphalt. And so being specific as a manager there on what needs to be done is valuable and applicable. On the flip side, I think as leaders, we want to be able to provide the resources that our employees need, and then set a vision, set goals, and then let the how be largely up to our employees, because that then stimulates more creativity. And sometimes, plenty of times, there's situations where an individual will figure out the most efficient and effective path then to get there. So as I was hearing the collective experience of a bunch of city managers around the state, ultimately what I heard, and admittedly, I recently binge watched Cobra Kai, but this is ultimately what I ended up hearing.
Good. Stand about. No. Bow. Up.
What, up front?
Yeah. Make block. Left to right. Up or down. Side to side. Breathe in, breathe out. And no scare fish.
Hey, when am I gonna learn how to punch?
Better learn balance. Balance is key. Balance good, karate good, everything good. Balance bad, better pack up to home. Understand?
Understand. Did you ever get into fights when you were a kid?
Plenty.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a problem I have, right?
Why? Fighting. Same.
Yeah, but you knew karate.
Someone always know more.
You mean there were times when you were scared to fight?
Always scared. Maybe hate the fighting.
Yeah, but you like karate. So karate's fighting. You train to fight.
That's what you think.
No.
Quite train.
So I won't have to fight.
Miyagi have a hope for you.
Where am I gonna learn how to punch?
Learn how to punch. Learn how. Keep trying. No! You all the way from behind me here!
All right, as awesome as Michael Scott and Ron Swanson are as managers, the real moral of the story here is Mr. Miyagi is the best manager, because must have balance. We want to, well, again, moral of the story here is there's always different extremes, and we all have even dramatic experiences in trying to manage our employees, but ultimately we want to be more of a leader, more of a mentor, more like Mr. Miyagi, and find balance. So in your roundtable discussions, again, first try to define as a group what it is that we're talking about, set a framework, then ask questions about how this applies or what experiences you've had with it, and then finally rephrase and summarize your conclusions.
Okay, so here's your list again. So in your little groups, identify one of these things that again, maybe you may be very familiar with or had recent experiences with, and discuss in your little groups like Bren just invited. And again, here's your question. What solutions have you found? Okay. I'm always a big believer that the only way to come up with good ideas is to have a lot of ideas. And that's why we're, again, trying to build our supervisor resource pool, because it's not just you in your department that has these problems. Okay. We all deal with it. So let's take the next several minutes and openly discuss some of these things and learn from each other. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we'll try to go ahead and wrap up some of those thoughts with your group. Okay, so within your groups, any light bulb moments, any paradigm shifts, any lessons learned that anyone would like to share with the group? Jace?
Just briefly, but I think we're all going through similar things, right? There's frustration, they're dealing, and this is talking about me, with the public and with other people in the city. Not people in general, but I mean, we all deal with similar things. And so it's nice to be able to have a group of, that you can call and say, hey, how are you dealing with this? Because we're not dealing with unique things. I mean, there's other departments and most departments are dealing with similar issues.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Paradigm shifts. Okay. Todd's got something.
Well, as what we were discussing is I think my biggest concerns, and I think, Captain Sorensen and BJ Robinson, they would agree, is just making the right hiring decisions and then retaining, quality employees. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing right now because, you hire the wrong employee and to equip that officer and perhaps to have them to leave in 6 months or a year. I mean, it's just thousands of dollars. And plus then you restart the clock when you have to rehire and train. And so I think that's our biggest thing is just working on, having good management, good supervisory skills to manage the officers. So they want to stay for 30 years.
Yeah. Hire the right people. I call it root causational factors. Okay. Go to the root, start at the root, start right out of the gate with the right people. And it's going to make yours, mine, and Carrie's job that much easier.
We all call them root causational factors. That's what we talk about as well.
Yes. Anyone else like to share? Oh, these guys are chatterboxes.
We're talking about the Super Bowl. I didn't even hear what the question was.
What did you guys learn or discuss?
It started with being a constant source of motivation. And we're still discussing it. I mean, he's probably whispering in my ear right now, but I don't know that we came to any kind of decision, but ultimately as a supervisor, we are always asked to constantly motivate our employees in different ways. But the biggest challenge is you really have to get to know your employee. Because I can't put every single one of my employees in a box and say, okay, I need you to do it this way, or I give them specific instructions and give them the cheer. They're all going to run out and do that. They all have different things that motivate them, whether it's money, whether it is a gift card, whether it is, just a verbal, hey, you're doing a great job, so on and so forth. But it's something that we constantly have to learn as well. If we're not motivated as supervisors ourselves, how can we expect our employees to be motivated and share that same, the same ideals or opinions? I don't know if you have anything.
And then the conversation kind of shifted from there to, as change occurs in an environment, it does begin to impact people's feelings of motivation. And we talked a bit about, how that change is viewed and how that impacts motivation and ways in which we can get feedback during those changes so that people feel like their voice is heard, so that motivation isn't impacted as heavily as it would be without the communication.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Sam? There you go.
So we had a few things that we discussed. We talked about avoiding micromanagement. I actually had a supervisor. He appreciated my sense of leadership and management because I really didn't micromanage him. But understanding that he had quite a few years of experience, I really didn't need to manage him as much as maybe some of our newer employees. And we had the discussion of you're not necessarily micromanaging them, you're holding them accountable. And then it evolved into me doing some introspective looking and realizing that I need to be better at communicating my expectations, making sure that they understand what my expectation is for work, and then accordingly having them understand what that means. So it's kind of that two-way street of, okay, this is what I mean when I'd like to see a project done in 6 weeks. They're saying, so is that kind of at all costs? I need to work 80 hours a week. I said, well, no, you need to communicate when you have different things coming up so then I can understand where timeframes are. And we just kind of evolved from there. And understanding that it takes a lot of time to, communicate your expectations, make sure that there's a two-way street, understanding that you're not being micromanaging, that you're holding accountable. And then on my side, I realized that it ended up I'm not as good at managing my own time because I spent a lot of time making sure that they're growing, learning, being motivated. And then I'm kind of stuck trying to make up work later and get my stuff done. But that's kind of my issue. But I know that in the long run, I'll have a team of good employees that hopefully want to be here because they want to be here, not because if they're going to leave, they're going to leave because they're seeking opportunity. Maybe they want to be another city engineer, maybe they want to be a manager, but they're wanting to stay here for the right reasons, not because we're not paying them or the environment. But so that's kind of some of the common challenges that I see for us, and that's what we're trying to work on.
Sam, I want to hold you accountable for what you're saying there, but I think we learned the technical term is micromanagement.
Thank you, Sam. Anyone else? Lena?
We just are continually fighting most of these things, but specifically burnout. I mean, I would say our overtime is unreal because we don't work a job where somebody can call in and we can just move on. We have to physically then find somebody to be in that seat. And so, I mean, our dispatchers work hard in this city. In the last 2 weeks, I haven't had a day off. Every weekend when I'm typically home with my family, I've been in a seat dispatching. So I think we just are continually fighting that, and it's tough, but I think we do it together. And I have the outlook where I can't expect my dispatchers to be doing that if I'm not willing to also be in that seat and give up my weekend to be there doing it also. And my goal is to try and prevent some of their burnout because they're just getting to the point where we've just kind of been going for so long. And we had this past week, we had 2 out in trainings and 2 out on FMLA. And so we were just so short, and I stepped up and kind of tried to bridge that gap for them so that it wasn't all just on them. So I think for me, leading, I like to lead by doing. So I'm not going to ask you to do it if I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Lena, I definitely appreciate the comment that when she said that it's something that we have to do together. Okay. Supervisor and employees, we're in this together. We all face that challenge, whether it's burnout or any other one of these up on the board. Okay. We have to do it together. And Lena, I follow that same principle as well, that I've told employees that I'm not going to ask you something to do that I'm not willing to do myself. Okay. And in that, again, we're building trust and trustworthiness. We're building those relationships. I think someone said earlier, it's about knowing your employees. Oh, Travis did. So that we can best move forward again together. Any other comments, Sean?
So
Well, for me, we started at the front and the end of it, communicating effectively and dealing with uncertainty. We found in the fire department, it's a unique dynamic. I could go a year and only see an individual half a dozen times if that's the contact they want. So we made a pretty intentional decision the last 4 or 5 months to bring our company officers, which is our captains, our station captains. We have 12 of those in the department, to try and bring them closer to us, so they can get their answers fielded by our administrative group, bringing them into meetings along with our battalion chiefs. So we get better information out to our floor, so we can deal with that uncertainty and not have information that might cause issues, that's not accurate, that's negatively impacting our service by just not communicating effectively.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sean. Any other thoughts? I hope to some degree, I hope that we have illustrated today that you are not alone as a supervisor. Okay. A lot of times we feel that way. I've got to come up with the answer. I've got to figure this out. I gotta go to my best Google friend and figure out on the internet how to do my job. Okay. It doesn't matter which department you're in, which division you're in, or what your responsibilities are. All of us, being a supervisor is very, very challenging. Okay. It is very difficult. You know, in our Orms Listen event a few weeks ago, I talked about stepping outside your comfort zone. And unfortunately, part of being a supervisor is living in the world outside of your comfort zone. Everything you do, conversations that you have, is again outside of that comfort zone, but it's promoting growth. Okay, you're growing, you're learning, and oftentimes you're learning how to do things the hard way by how not to do something. But again, still that's learning, that's moving forward. We're not perfect. No one's expecting you to be perfect. And we've all got a lot to learn. So I hope today that even in your little groups, that again, make sure you know each other's names, that you can look it up on the website as far as their contact information. And I hope, and I invite you to reach out to other groups as you tackle some of these problems. Okay. When Carrie and I talk about building a better Orem, okay, we're not talking just about the frontline employees. Okay. We want to improve our supervisors. We want to improve their resources and their knowledge and their skill set. Okay. But we want to be unified. We all work for the city of Orem. Okay. To me, that's very important. And that's, again, that's why I hope that we can all come here in person to these trainings to support each other, to learn from each other, be patient with each other. Okay. We're all supervisors. We're all in this together. So, Carrie, do you have anything to add?
I do, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I just want to appreciate everybody who came in person today. It's nice to see people face to face. I think we have a different learning experience when we come in person. So those of you online, thank you for joining. If you can come in person in the future, we'd love to have you in person. Also, I wanted to mention that we do have the Atomic Habit books. If you haven't picked yours up yet as a supervisor, there's some out in the lobby area with the treats. So make sure you grab one. If they're all gone out there before you get a chance, I've got more in my office. So make sure you have that. We will start reviewing this book in August. So you have until August to finish this up, get it all highlighted. We'll spend 3 months on discussing this book. So make sure by beginning of August, you have this read. And then I just wanted to mention how much I appreciate everybody's willingness to step out of your comfort zone today. That means a lot to us that you're willing to do that and do these exercises with us.
So on your way out, again, make sure you got a little flashlight, but I got some cookies out there on the table. Make sure you get at least a couple cookies. I'm totally out of picture here. Sorry, those online. So I do have crumble cookies. I've got a couple hundred of them actually out there. So take a couple. Again, another perk for coming in person. But again, thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here. Please reach out to Carrie and I with any questions in regard to anything. And we're more than happy to assist where we can. So have a wonderful day.